It looks like the guys in Detroit are benchmarking against the BYD Seagull. This is very exciting, I guess, a little terrifying, perhaps. We're going to discuss it. So, of course, I've called on an expert, if you will, someone who follows EVs closely and has for a very long time. Mark from the Tesla Life is in the house. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. Oh, Mark, this video, I don't know what to say, man.
Yeah, it was surprising, wasn't it?
It was
That it
surprising.
showed up on U.S. shores this quickly.
Well, I assume someone brought it in specifically for this purpose.
Yes.
It's not going to be something that is necessarily sold here, certainly not in its current configuration. There's a couple things missing, but 11,000 for a real car, albeit with short range, is awfully, awfully good. Should we take a look?
Let's do.
So I'm keeping the sound off. You can get the idea. You can see it. It's kind of cute. Let's see if we can. There we go. Caresoft. Caresoft. There you go. I don't know how they got this into the country in a way that would make it road legal.
I
That's
don't think it is. The video shows that they're just driving in a parking lot and they're not on regular streets.
and no plates. So yes, you can bring things like this in to dismantle and check them out. If you're not going to put a car on the road, you could call it a track car and they'd let you import it. You just can't license it. This is I mean, for the look, I'm not a fan of the color, but what do you think of the style of the car?
Actually, it reminds me of the Bolt a little bit. The back end definitely does. I can see a Boltish look, or maybe a Spark look, because of its size. But yeah, for a small, cheaper car, hey, the style works for me.
It looks so much better than a lot of economy cars that are even on the road today. And again, the color is kind of hard for me to get over, but it is, I mean, that's a sophisticated headlamp there. That's a real quality piece of material. And when they went around, they were, banging on and here they're talking about the fact that they make the batteries themselves, they make the motors themselves, they make more parts than most manufacturers do in-house, which allows them greater cost controls. But for the style of it, it looks fantastic. This is what the Bolt should have been.
Well, I would say that this is something that BYD has been talking to us for a while about this coming into Europe, about this coming ultimately to North America, probably within their plans. But what is interesting is that, as you mentioned, the vertical integration that BYD holds, not only things like Tesla do as well, but they're taking it to a different level where the massive manufacturing giant that they are, they're able to select different parts of this vehicle and manufacture it themselves so they don't have to worry about the markups that come with traditional parts like seats, for example, or steering wheels. They can make this kind of stuff themselves and avoid the markup and keep that low dollar point that's going to end up in front of a consumer.
The seat manufacturer would want their 5, 10, 20%. Every part you can take out of their hands and competently build yourself is just more money in your pocket. And yeah, there's no frunk, but there's no space for a frunk. It's very tight up there. And if I could buy an $11,000 around town car, I can do without a frunk. I would be able to handle that inconvenience. So one thing I did notice is some of the corners they cut, like in the back, there's no rear window wiper. You would absolutely need to add one for the U.S. market if you were to build here or sell here. But we're talking $50, certainly less than 100.
Open that trunk and take a look at what is there as well. Notice that it's basically one piece of metal. They're not adding all the extra bits of plastic that would typically go around the frame of the door. They're
Right.
saving money there, and they're making it look good. Like that's the other thing. It's not a bad look to see. Obviously, the color's kind of crazy, but that look of metal that the hinges are on, it doesn't look like it needs an extra liner of plastic. to hide it from the consumer.
The welds are very clean. The frunk made a good thud when it closed. It seems well built. And bear in mind, BYD has got years and years of experience building cars, general cars, not necessarily electric cars. They've been building those for a while, and they're building them more and more. But that is clean fitment. That is a good, clean build for a car that costs nothing at all.
Yeah, let's keep in mind that this is not for U.S. roads yet. As you pointed out, it's going to need things like a rear wiper and other things in order to pass the test here for North America. But even if it was to add 40-50% to the cost, you're still talking about a $16,000 car. Like
Yeah.
that's unheard of for a medium range EV. And as we've talked about previously, this could eat a lot of the US manufacturer's lunch if it was to come over even at that 16,000 price point. It would be bought up in a hurry.
Absolutely. And what I think this would really do is destroy used car values. Because would you rather pay 20,000 for a used I don't know, Hyundai, or 16,000 for a new BYD? Now, you'd said earlier BYD has their sights on the US. The CEO of BYD Americas said this week, no, 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 we have no plans to enter the US market. And if it was me that was that CEO in that position on an election year, I'd say the same thing too.
Yeah.
Because
Why throw up the alert signs if you don't have to?
right, and today it doesn't matter. If you
Yeah.
want to throw restrictions on us, worry about that in the future. When it's abundantly clear that these are good cars at good prices. So BYD has got, and if they were to build these in Mexico and you got a $7,500 credit, it, it's a free car. Well, and they would also, if they built their batteries in the US, get that $45 for building per kilowatt hour for building the pack. That's a very substantial percentage of the total cost of the build at that point.
And think about them moving into other nations ahead of this. They already have plans for Hungary and other places in Europe. They have plans for South America. Maybe North America's last on their list, but that's going to make them even more dangerous to the North American market because they're going to have volume behind them at that point.
They would flip at that point. They would flip a switch. They would say, "Okay, take Brazil, replicate it in Mexico or South Carolina. We're just going to make the exact same car." Now, there would be cost added, like you're saying. It's not just the rear windshield wiper. There would be, I assume, changes that would need to be made to improve crash worthiness. That's a common place to cut corners. But I don't know on that. This might already be at or near Western crash safety standards. The only thing that's really missing on this car is it is the short range version, but for what, $3,000-$4,000 more, you get one with a pretty good range.
Yeah, yeah. The interior's no slouch either. It looks pretty good on the inside. There's some tales of hard metal, like there, right there. Perfect example was the air vent. They've cut it into the design of the front of the car. Looks a little bit subpar, but other than that, it's a good interior. Look, it's got two screens. It's got a charge pad sitting right there at the driver's knee area. It's got some nice buttons on it. It's got two-tone interior colors. Like this is a great offering for a entry-level EV.
It looks better than any compact rental car I've ever had, I would say. Right? Uh, I've had nicer rental cars, just not in the budget segment. So yeah,
But
it's
this is a compelling offer, and of course, Autoline here is actually interviewing someone that's going to be taking this vehicle completely apart. This is someone that is trying to see how the Chinese have been able to get to a $11,500 price point with this exact model. So this car will be stripped down to the individual bolts and costed out, so they can record how this vehicle has got to where it is price wise.
Now, if you guys haven't had a chance, I will leave a link to this in the description. Go watch the whole thing because it's remarkable. We don't need 19-inch, 20-inch, 35-inch wheels. Thank you very much, Cybertruck. I mean, the wheels, just compare the cost of Cybertruck wheels and tires to this entire car.
Exactly.
It's a good percentage of the journey. Yeah, the screen is big enough. This is, you can put up protectionist policies all you want for now, but that's only going to hold the waters back. It's not going to make them recede. This is going to be a car that can be sold anywhere in the world. And if they're only breaking even at 11, I'm going to tell you right now, you can jack it up to 12 and still probably move the same number of units.
12, I'd say that you could move it for 15 plus.
Well, in Western countries for sure.
Yes, yeah.
But I mean, this could be a South America model,
True.
a Africa model, a India model. It's, I mean, if this doesn't make Mary Barra lose sleep at night, nothing will. So
yeah, they got to be aware of it, certainly, and it's something that I gotta believe that they've known this has been coming for quite some time. But to actually see it show up at a parter in Michigan has got to be providing them with some sleepless nights.
I hope so, because if they're not, they are absolutely asleep at the wheel, something I don't recommend in the BYD Seagull.
Yeah.
Now, I will point out that when they say, oh, this has got, 100 miles of range or whatever it is, that's definitely not on the EPA test cycle. I know there was a car, the MG had something, they were like, oh, we get, 250 miles of range, whatever it was. And I said, which test cycle? Because this was in England. They go, WLTP. And I'll tell you, I don't know what the WLTP rating is on my car, but I tried to find out by driving on the wrong side of the road here, and the officer was not amused. So incomplete data. I didn't get to finish the test. I'll figure it out. I'll crack this one.
WLT is wildly optimistic.
It is a bit generous, And what's funny is people criticize the EPA rating as being much too optimistic as well, but the EPA is a lot closer to real world driving. And I've yet to hear any suggestions from people that would meaningfully help you understand what your actual range is going to be, because everyone drives differently. My Nissan was rated at, 25, 26 miles to the gallon, and I never got anywhere close to that. And I drive like a grandma, so I don't know what to tell you. I've just always assumed that those were guidelines. I know people who hypermile who can get much better gas mileage out of their cars, or at least what the sticker says. And I also know people who drive their Teslas quite slow. James Stevenson has a lifetime average of something like 190 watt hours per mile, something like that.
Yep.
So because he doesn't go on the highways a lot, he doesn't do road trips where he's blasting at full speed. He just tools around town. He also is on his first set of tires after 5-6 years because he doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And he drives reasonably. So, or so I'm told. I've never driven with him, of course, but you get the idea. In terms of their impressions of the drive, why don't you sum that up?
They felt that it was not a particularly perfectly smooth vehicle. They were driving it over some rough roads. As mentioned, it was in the back lots of a few factories and storage areas, and they found that it didn't squeak or rattle. It handled itself pretty good. Again, this is a vehicle that is at the starting end of pricing, and they completely understood what it was and what it's made of. And it would certainly be something that could pass as a vehicle that could drive in North America, even with some potholed roads as Michigan is full of.
For those who don't know, Michigan, in 49 states, the road weight limit is 80,000 pounds, and in Michigan, I think it's 155,000. Because for real, that is real. That's why Michigan has different kinds of cement trucks than everywhere else in the lower 48. They needed the extra weight to handle the big industry of the auto industry, the big heavy stuff that was just going around. So, yeah, very, very weird. Okay. Closing thoughts in terms of what you think the competition must be thinking.
Oh, they got to be again. If they're not asleep at the switch, they got to be scared because this is their worst nightmare. A vehicle that is a quick seller, priced cheaply, but appointed with enough items on it that would make sense for a person to purchase it and use it as a town or a regional commuter at a cheap price. This is what us EV owners have been asking for forever. We don't want this $75,000-$80,000 beginner EV. We want this car because this would allow more people to get involved with the EV movement and start saving money on gasoline and maintenance. This is a perfect fit for those beginning into the EV realm.
My question for the comments is, what would you pay for this car? If this was here, if you could buy it, what would you pay? Would you not buy it at any price? You can say that too, but what price would you actually pay? So what do we miss? What do we misunderstand? Leave it all in them comments and stay tuned, stay juicy, and can't wait to hear from you clever robots on the next one. And of course, head on over and check out the Tesla Life. They do so many videos all the time, every week. They are out there and it is awesome. Mark, thank you so much.
Thanks, Brian.